If they're, I'm actually a little remiss because I wish I would have gotten here earlier. I got to meet Rudy for the first time. Good to meet you. I got to see Xenia. I know you from pictures. Good to see you. The Round Paul family has been a blessing to me in many, many ways. And I see some of my colleagues in the area, in the room, Dr. Hunter, and also in Professor Hunter as well. And Joel, I just met you tonight in a small group. Good to meet you. And so tonight, I'm really excited and I'm really honored to be a part of New Millennium and what you all are doing. And what you're doing is forging a path for Christian citizenship that is not only sustainable, because we see the dwindling of the church, right, and the falling away of believers, but also it is compassionate and it is connected. And I think that's the only way that's going to be sustainable, is if we can be compassionate and connected to people. Well, let's be honest. There are a lot of people out there who don't look like, live like, or love like us. We have a hard time having conversations with them. We know there was one Christ. We know that he saves all. We know that he came, lived, died, and rose again for all. But oftentimes it's very difficult for us as representatives to figure out how to connect to those whom he loves when we don't quite like how we feel when we're around them. And when I say them, there's not one monolithic them. Every one of us has different groups. I'm from California, so I like to imagine this. I want you to imagine if you're a Trump voter and you were up in Oakland, California. No, better yet, you were on the campus of UC Berkeley, a very, very liberal place, like the definition of liberal. It's the mecca, so to speak, of liberal place and liberality in terms of the political spectrum. I want you to imagine you're a Trump voter and you walk into the main street of UC Berkeley and you have to have conversations with people who represent Christ. Not very comfortable. On the flip side, I want you to imagine you're a Biden voter and you walk onto the main street of Orange County, California, where I'm from, one of the most conservative counties, believe it or not, even though California is a more liberal state, one of the most conservative counties in the nation. How do you connect to people and show them the love of Christ? It's difficult. It requires what I call deliberate discomfort. So I'm calling us today to find hope in, to find conviction in, to find relationship in deliberate discomfort. Matter of fact, I'm gonna ask y'all to share something with me. When I say we're better, I want you to say together, if you believe it. We're better
Together.
Let's put our hands into it. If you can't, you have use of your hands. If not, just your limbs. I want to just move for the intention of hugging our community and connecting with our community. Even the people who don't look like, live like, or love like us. It's easy to have an amen to the church house and we're all on one accord. But what about when we're with people that make us feel a little uncomfortable because of the way they are, or the way they speak, or maybe the way they look? Let's just be real. We've got to constantly remind ourselves that we're better together. One more time. We're better
Together.
I love it. We got the Wakanda up there. I love it. Yes. So I'm going to start off a little poem that I hope will help us to connect. One thing I do in communication is I try to start off with some bit of performance or theater or form. Because somehow when you start telling stories, people can let their walls down and they step into deliberate discomfort with a little more ease. Jesus Christ did this with parables. He was telling stories. He was a better storyteller than Shakespeare himself, right? So let me start with this poem. It goes like this. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in bleak and bitter cold. Each possessed a stick of wood, or so the story told. The 5 dying in need of logs, the first one held his back. But of the faces round the fire, we noticed one was black. The next man looking across the way saw one not from his church and couldn't bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. Poor man, said, tattered clothes, gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm the idle rich? The rich man sat back and thought of all the wealth he had in store. How to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor? The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from his sight. See, all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. The next man of this forlorn group gave not except for gain. Giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. Each log was held in death's still hands as proof of human sin. They didn't die from the cold without. They died from the cold. That is a poem that has tugged on my heart, pulled on my soul for years since I learned it. It's called The Cold Within by James Patrick Kinney. It was written way back in 1964. And just incidentally, James Patrick Kinney happened to be a white man. I don't identify as white, although I have some white ancestors. He happened to be a Catholic man. I'm not Catholic. I do have some family members who are Catholic. In many ways, he was different from me, from a different time, 1964, a time before which I was born. But the words of his poem continue to speak out and call me into community. I hope they've done the same for you today. How do we find a way to call people in instead of calling people out? It's really easy to call out sin, but it's really difficult to call in the sinner to repentance, to love, to compassion, to connection, to relationship. And so I was thinking to myself, man, I've got some clever things I can tell everybody tonight. You know, I love the Lord. I'm a youth pastor at a church. I bring the word every once in a while. Let me go ahead and tickle their ears and tell them. I said, no. Actually, the Holy Spirit said, no. Son, you talked about that, right? Holy Spirit will tell you some things. He said, go to the word. Go to the word. It's a living word. It's true. It's real. It's the best piece of poetry, theater, history you could ever read. At least the most relevant one to me. And so if you go to John chapter 4, St. John, as these saints would say, don't go to first, second, or third. Those are epistles. We're going to the Gospel of John, right? Chapter 4, we see Jesus is trying to get away from a threat. The Pharisees are looking to attack him, to persecute him, and eventually he knows they're going to put him to death, but it's not his time. So he's not getting away from them out of fear, because he's learned to embrace deliberate discomfort. But he knows he has a few more steps in his journey to go through before it's his time to die and to rise again. And so he decides in his journey to go through Samaria, of all places. Samaria, a place that is full of people who are what the Jewish people of the time might have called a bastard people, a hybrid, impure people in their theology and their ethnicity. And I say that to say there was a very negative perspective of these people on behalf of the Jewish people. They kind of believed in the things of Judaism, but they added some stuff later. They believed Jacob was their father, but they actually, mixed up with some other tribes and some other people, and they had some different beliefs. Let's just say their doctrine was not sound. And the Jewish people knew this. But Jesus decided, of all the places to pass through on his way from a threat to a place of deliberate discomfort, he'd go to Samaria. So in John chapter 4, we see Jesus going into Samaria on purpose. Again, this would be like a Trump voter going to the University of UC Berkeley on purpose. And not to use talking points or to convince anybody, but to go and actually connect with people. Why would you do that on purpose? Or like a Joe Biden voter going into Orange County, California, to go and spend some time with some very conservative people just to talk to them about God and life on purpose, knowing that he's going to bump his head against a few things and meet many people who don't look like, live like, or love like him. So Jesus does this. And what I love about the first part of this, and I'm going to just walk you through it because Jesus was a storyteller, and I'm going to just tell you the story. You can read the scripture directly. And plus, I know there's all kinds of distinctions between which translation people use. So if I use King James Version, you might think I'm a little too stodgy and traditional. If I use NIV, you might think I'm a heretic. So I'm going to tell you what the Bible says. All right? Tell you what a TI is. So I want to meet you where you are. This is something I learned from a friend of mine named True Pettigrew. He said, if you want to connect to people who are distant from you or potentially different from you, you've got to meet them where they are, not where you want them to be. You've got to be willing to love them for who they are, not who you want them to be. Then and only then can you lead them to where they need to go. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If you care more about your doctrine or your politics or your understanding of self and society than you did care about the person who's in front of you in that moment, you're wrong. And the reason why I say you're wrong is because Jesus Christ modeled the exact opposite of it on a regular basis. So what does Jesus do? He goes to Samaria, a place where he's not sure if he'll be welcome. He certainly knows he doesn't quite fit. These people are not like him. They're not his people. He's out of his comfort zone, at least ethnically, religiously, socially. And he gets there and he's fatigued, he's exhausted. So what does the Bible says he does? He sits down by a well. And the Bible says he is fatigued. We know that Jesus Christ was 100% man and 100% God. The numbers don't add up, but all things are possible in God, right? So he felt 100% of the thirst and the fatigue. And he was at his most vulnerable when he was in what you and I might think of as enemy territory. He was a Democrat that just bumbled into a Trump rally. Uh-oh. He was a red hat, make America great again, passionate patriot who just happened to show up at an Antifa rally or a Black Lives Matter meeting. Uh-oh. And he didn't show up with all of his weapons. He didn't have one of his disciples with him. He was alone. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't have his satchel of money to buy his way in and out of a situation. Apparently, there was a young man named Judas who carried the money. We'll hear about him later. Jesus was there without his resources, without his squad, without his team, without his crew, without support, and he was fatigued. He was vulnerable. He found himself vulnerable in a space where he did not fit, and he knew it. And he sat down, and who does he see? Or for my English majors, whom does he see? I know I have some people who were trained by the British tradition. He sees a woman, what we would call a Samaritan or a Samaritan woman. A woman who is very much different from him ethnically, racially, however we want to call it nowadays, but most importantly, religiously. And her gender is different. At this time, it was not at all appropriate for a man and a woman to be alone in conversation, regardless of their ethnic backgrounds. So he's tired, he's out of gas, he has no support, and he's now in a place of need. And to go back to this element of this stick, this poem, we all are given sticks, we're all given gifts, callings, propensities, capacities that not everyone has. And God is calling us to put it into the fire to make it warmer than it was before we got there. Amen. Amen. Jesus Christ, he does something really powerful for this one. See, somewhere along the way, I want you to imagine that you're the woman first. Somewhere along the way, you've been given a gift. Maybe you speak well, maybe you sew, maybe you're a great listener. Maybe you just have a capacity to evangelize and you can bring up the word, just comes out of you naturally. Well, others of us are dumbfounded or we can't do it well unless we're at a podium like me, right? Maybe you just have a gift for hospitality and you can serve people with a grace that I can't even muster up. Whatever it may be, you've been given this gift, and somewhere along the way, someone told you with their words or with their actions that it was too something. Too tall, too short, too white, too black, too conservative, too liberal, too effeminate, too masculine, too big, too small, too whatever it was. And it may not have been words. It may have been people who had the best of intentions. But when you came and you presented your gift, they said, oh, bless your heart. Not now. And it was enough for you as a child or middle school or maybe even an adult to be scathed, to be hurt, to be injured by that rejection. And something inside you said, no, hold it back. Don't put it into the fire because it's not good enough. It's too whatever. And when you do that, we all suffer. See, the reason why those 6 men died in that poem was because they all held back the gift that they were given. It was just enough. It wasn't enough to keep everyone alive. But imagine if everyone would have put just their part in. It was just enough to keep that fire warm. And I imagine what would have happened is if they would have put that stick in the fire, they would have gotten just close enough to the other people to say, oh, you're not a monster. Oh, you don't smell like hell. You don't look like, you don't have fangs. You're a human. We're different. Oh, we can agree to disagree on some things, but we all want to survive. And if we put this stick into the fire, that is an act of love that is self-sacrificial, but at the same time self-sustaining, because if we all do it together, we'll be better together. And I want to encourage you because I feel like this woman at the well was told at some point that her gift, her capacity to receive and give love, her worthiness was in question. I feel like we've all been in that place where we've been told or treated like we were not enough. And somehow we forget that our God is great and that there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. He loves us with a perfect love. So Jesus Christ, before putting his stick into the fire, he invited her to put hers into the fire. He shows up and he's fatigued And he knows that he doesn't belong there, or she doesn't think he belongs there. And he asks her for a favor. He says, will you please give me some water? He doesn't say, woman, I am the Son of God, the Most High. You will hydrate me. No. He didn't say, hey, Samaritan, your theology's off with your hydration. Come on, bring that. I want some of that. He says, will you bring me water? Question mark. Inquiry. Which means she had the option to say what? No, come on. Free will. You must have free will to have true love. We explain this to atheists all the time, don't we? Well, if God is such a great God, then why would he give you the choice to go to? Because you can't have love without choosing love. He gave her the opportunity to choose to meet his need before she knew who he was. Somehow, I just know that Christ looked at her and said, somehow along the way, someone miseducated you, themselves on you. Someone mislabeled you. Someone misunderstood you. And you don't think you're good enough. But I'm going to give you the opportunity to serve the Son of the Most High God. The closest thing you'll ever get to being in the presence of God. Give you the opportunity to serve me humbly because I need it. This is huge. Not just give you the opportunity to be a servant to the man of God, but to meet my need because really, I'm really, truly, genuinely thirsty. I'm tired. I'm away from home. I'm not in a comfortable place. Ma'am, will you please help me? I need it. He humbled himself. He didn't use talking points. He didn't go through the Torah with her. He didn't even talk about his identity just yet. When she looked at him, she was trying to figure out what he was all about. And so she was letting him know, you can't get water here unless you have a bucket. And he was nodding, I'm imagining, at her at that moment saying, yeah, you have the bucket. I want you to help. I need you to put your stick in the fire. Sometimes in ministry, we need to give people opportunities to put their sticks in the fire. Mm-hmm. We say, well, I'm strong. I can preach. I can teach. I can hold it down. 80-20% rule. Y'all know how it is. 20% of people do 80% of the work. That's why people in leadership are so fatigued. They're doing so much. I've got this. I've had too many people let me down. I've had too many people go off far left when I just said scoot a little bit to the right. And so we grab things and we try to control them. But we can't have the fire that Christ has called us to have. That perfect love that casts out fear, lest you put yourself into a position of deliberate discomfort and give other people responsibility. Not obligation, not burden, but responsibility. I see you have this gift. Would you please share it? I'd like you to share it. And if and when you let me down, because that's what people do, I'm going to keep on coming back and still love you and still give you an opportunity because the time is going to come when you're going to own your gift and put it in that fire. And we will see a conflagration in our community, in our churches, in our households like we've never seen before when we give agency and empowerment to people who just want to serve. They just have been told it wasn't right. It was too this or too that. They weren't sufficient. They weren't love. And so he gives her the opportunity to put her stick in the fire by asking for the water. Long story short, he lets her know, actually, truth be told, I have some water that if you drank it, you'd never be thirsty again. Because now that she knows that he cares and she's listening, and he's listening, he can now tell her, I have a little stick I'd like to put in the fire. If you want it, I just want to offer it. She's like, wait a second. You have water? This is the well of Jacob, our forefather. They had mutual forefathers, Jacob, Israel, right? I know this well. I've been here so many times before. I know how to get in and get out. I'll get you some water. But you have some water from which I will never thirst if I drink it? I want some of that. She's listening now because she sees that he has been vulnerable, and humble, and open, and he's listening to her. He's valuing her gift. And he says, yeah, I can get you that. He's like, really? Sounds good. He says, yeah, go tell your husband about it. He invites her to bring her community. She says, gotcha, not married. Oh, the single lady. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go there. Not married. And he looks at her, and he has a perfect opportunity to call her out. Look here, you lying lady. I know that you're lying to me. No, he doesn't say that. He says, well, you're right. He gives it to her. You're right, ma'am. You're not married. Actually, you're on your fifth guy, and I know he's not really your husband. That's not the point here. And you know he must have said it with such a sweet and open and kind spirit that she received it. Otherwise, she would not have said what she said next. I've got to go tell everyone. This is a man who knows everything about me. And not only does he know everything about me, but he didn't call me out, he called me in. Which means he loved me where I was, not where he wanted me to be. He met me where I was, not where he wanted me to be. And he loved, and that way he can lead me to where I need to go. And so what happened was she went and she became one of the first evangelists of all time. A woman preacher, by the way. Teacher, at least. You give me that. And brought many of the Samaritans to come and become believers in Christ. Because what did he do? He did three things. He met her and he gave her an opportunity to use her gift. And he humbly asked her to use her gift. He didn't tell, because I'm the man of God. No, he didn't ordain her to use the gift. He didn't order her. He didn't mandate. He asked her, please use your gift. And then when she felt comfortable being courageous and stepping into her place of discomfort, because she was uncomfortable being around him as well. She knew the social norms. And she knew back in those days, women got it harder than men. You all heard the story about the woman who got caught in the act of adultery. Never hear about what happened to the guy, but the woman sure was about to get stoned. So she knew that the stakes were high for her. And even then, because she felt safe, because he gave her an opportunity to use her gift, when he extended his gift, water from which she would never thirst, she was ready to receive it. So first, he allowed her to use her gift, humbly requesting it. Secondly, he offered his gift. And thirdly, he refused to call her out even when he had grounds. He had grounds to call her out. She had been on the fifth man that she was with. She was not living in a way that was in accordance with the Torah. She in her perspective knew it. He in his perspective knew it. She knew that he knew that she knew that he knew it. And even then, he just said, you're right. This man is not your husband. And I'm not going to come for you around it. I'm not going to attack you. I'm just going to speak the truth. Because this is not about where we're worshiping or how you're living your life right now. This is about me and you. And right now, I am focusing on loving you because that's my primary objective. At any given time, when you're dealing with a person who's different from you, your primary objective, if you are a believer in Christ, is to love them the best that you can. And Jesus Christ modeled that time and time again. So what was he able to do? He was able to worship his Father, our Father, in spirit and in truth by getting past all the differences and meeting her where she was and loving her and choosing to call her in rather than call her out. So I want to give you all a little bit of a tip. I'm from California. I live in North Carolina now. I deal with people of all different backgrounds at Fayetteville Technical Community College. And my fearless leader is Dr. Dwarka Rampa. Dr. Dwarka Prasad Rampa. And I just learned his middle name. I said, well, I like that. What do you mean sweet? Like sweet. Anyway, let me not get distracted. I like to learn the meanings of people's names because when I learn my students' names and what they mean, I can connect that to purpose. Right? I can start to tell them about what I see and love them even better. So learn the names of the people that serve you and serve with you. See them, encourage them, and bless them. And remember that you may be the only Goldilocks they'll ever meet. And it's a shame, but you may be the only Goldilocks they'll ever meet. Let me tell you what I mean. Goldilocks, little girl walking through the woods. She enters a home that's not hers. We would normally call that breaking and entering. But in this case, it's a fairy tale. She just enters the house. She goes to the first bowl of porridge. She's hungry, much like Jesus was in this story. She's fatigued. And the first bowl of porridge, it's big, but it's too hot. The second bowl of porridge, she digs in and it's too cold. The third bowl of porridge, y'all tell me, what is it?
Just right.
Come on, now you know the story. Then she says, oh, my belly's full. I want to just have a sit down and maybe just kind of think about the day and just relax a little bit. So she goes to the first big chair. It's a big wooden chair, splintery and hard, and it's sturdy enough, but it's uncomfortable for her soft, little fragile body. So she gets out of that. That must be Papa Bear's chair. I don't want that one. She goes to the next chair, and it's very plush, and it's got, the soft elements all about it, just too soft. She just sinks into it. And she gets out of that, must be Mama Bear's chair. That doesn't really work for her. And it's a nice little chair, just soft enough, just firm enough. Gives a lower lumbar support, the kind of support we need. Yeah. And she sits down into it, and it's what?
Just right.
She's so comfortable in this place now that she can rest. You ever hear the scripture that says that God gives us the peace that passes all understanding?
Yeah.
Amen. He gives rest to those he loves. When you're not always defending yourself and trying to fight your cause and fight this and fight that and prove people wrong and win battles, you can just rest. There's power in that. Remember when the storm was happening outside the ship and what was Jesus doing at the bottom of the ship? Sleeping. His disciples were angry that he was sleeping. It's like, wait a second, follow that example. So I'm turning this little girl story into a bit of an object lesson for us here that connects us to the word. So she decided, I'm comfortable. I'm going to rest. She gets in the first bed. We know what happened. It's too hard. Second bed, too soft. Next bed is what?
Just right.
I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves that Jesus Christ is looking at us in all of our mess and all of our mistakes and our misunderstandings and misreadings. And he's saying, I know you're wrong in this area. I know you've made some mistakes. You certainly could have said that better. But to me, just where I need you, because if you will open your hand and just put that wood into the fire, I will match it with a piece of wood that will burn forevermore in your heart and your mind. And wherever you go, if you will be like me, you can let people know you're just right. I'm not saying your sin is okay. I'm not saying that you couldn't do better. We all are growing in the stature of Christ. But how sweet is it to be in the presence of someone who says, I'm just glad you're here. Joanna, the fact that you're here means something to me. I just met you, but your smile is contagious. I couldn't stop smiling right now if I wanted to, because I am connected to the warmth. I don't know what you did 5 minutes ago. I don't know what you're thinking right now. But I know I can get to a place where I can see you as just right because you're here. And because for such a time as this, I was called to meet you either in your fatigue and warm you with my stick of fire, or I was called to ask you for your help because I'm cold in this cold world where we're so divided and so confused and so angry and so afraid. But I need you to please put your stick in the fire and help me and give me strength so that we can go back and forth and connect. And sometimes we will agree to disagree, especially when we're talking about doctrine and religion. I have people that I know and that I love that are Catholic. We have some fundamental differences about people that I know who are Hebrew Israelites, some fundamental differences in doctrine, racial, politics, social, but I love them because they're here in front of me. And my assignment, your assignment at any given moment is to love the people in front of you with all of you got and let them know for such a time as this right now, I want to give you an opportunity to share your gift. I'm going to share my gift, and you're just right. As a scholar, I learned this when I was getting my PhD. I told my wife, I'm coming back and forth from Chapel Hill to North Carolina. It's very difficult. I'm exhausted. And there are things that you want me to learn and know about you and the boys. It's hard for me to remember. I have a hard time remembering, what outfit they're supposed to wear or what date an event is happening. And I told her I was frustrated with that. And she told me something that I will never forget and that will always, always convict me, but also challenge me to do better. She said, I wish you would study me like you study those books up in college. And she didn't say it with the neck roll. She didn't roll her eyes at me. She didn't suck her teeth. She looked at me in the face. And she was saying, I wish you would put that stick in the fire, because if you did, our household would be better. I would be better. I need that. She said it to me with such a sweet tone to say, I want to be studied. I want to be loved. And when she said it to me, not only did it remind me of what God called me to do as the priest of my house and as a lover of all who are in my sphere of influence, it reminded me that in any given time, whether it's a student, a colleague, a fellow preacher or teacher or a young person or a family member, any given time, if I'm looking in your eyes, my prime objective, my only job is to love you the best I can. It is not to be right. It is not to convict you. It's not even to lead you to Christ. It is to represent Christ, that all men be led unto him. It's not even to save your soul. People out there counting souls. I saved 500 souls this month. He saved a soul. You just love the person in front of you. That's all you have to do. It's much simpler than you thought, but it's so much more uncomfortable, isn't it? So I say this tonight as we get started and we get into deeper conversations going forward. Let us be willing and ready and courageous enough to engage in deliberate discomfort. Let us be vulnerable and open and gracious enough to put our stick in the fire, not force it, just put it in the fire to make it the place warmer. And let us be empowering, loving, thoughtful enough to invite others to put their sticks into the fire. And when they do, regardless of how they put their stick in the fire or what their stick looks like, let's commit ourselves not to call them out, but to call them in. To see what's beautiful, whatever things are good and pure and lovely and praiseworthy about those things, and name it. And I'll give you this last little tit trick. When you do say that beautiful thing and give that wonderful, what I call flower, do not follow it up with the word but. That was a wonderful message, but you talk too fast. I know I do. I'm working on it. You use the word and. It's an empowering, beautiful thing. You use the word and. I feel like Jesus did that in this story. She said, oh, I'll go tell my husband. Well, she said, go tell your husband. She said, I'm not married. And he could have said, yeah, you're not married, but you're doing some shacking up stuff at the house. He didn't say but. He said, yeah, you're right. And you're on the fifth guy, whatever you want to call it, but go tell him. Because the point is not to correct your lifestyle right now. The point is to love you and to let you know that I see you. So whenever you encourage the person and you recognize that beautiful stick that they put in, you may notice that it's not quite what you would have done. It's not quite the best. Never say but, always say and. So, hey, that was a wonderful speech. And if you slow it down a little bit, I think we could catch it. I'm glad it was on Zoom and recorded, so that will help us, right? Hey, thanks for taking the trash out. And if you could do it on Thursday instead of Wednesday, because Wednesday's not trash day, it'd be great. And for the flowers. And, I'm allergic to daffodils or whatever it is, so if we could try roses next time, right? Thank you for hugging me. And I think you cracked one of my ribs because you hugged me so tight. And thank you for that. Can we work on a softer hug next time? So let us all continue in this time together, loving each other with grace, meeting each other where we are, loving each other for who we are. Then and only then will Christ lead us where we need to go. Amen? Here we go.
I can see why Kelly and I did so much, do so many presentations and all that together. But before we go, there's one other thing. I want to come back to that story of the fire. And each one of us, we come to this conference with a stick to put in the fire. So I'm going to ask him to share another verse or another stanza, two or three stanzas. I'm going to ask Sterling and Grace. And maybe your daughter, what's her name? Olivia. If the three of you will come, and I'm going to ask you to give these out, one to each person. This represents the gift that you have brought today. Yeah.
Share it freely.
Yeah.
Make sure
One.
gets one.
Yeah, each person gets.
So that's Olivia. That's Grace. Yeah. I like you said I'm going to ask, not, hey, children, come up here. And I will share actually another poem. We talked about the poem, The Sticks, and as I hand this out to you, some of you are thinking, I don't really have a gift, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, or people don't care, or I've been denied too many times. So I want you to remember that your thinking is so important. As you hold that stick, I want you to consider to yourself, maybe even write down the many gifts, the manifold blessings that God has done and will do through you. Own it, because it's not you, it's Him, right? So if you think you are beat, then you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win but think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you've lost. For out in the world we find success begins with the fellow's will, and it's all in a state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You have to think high to rise. Have to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. See, life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks it. Sooner or later, the woman who wins is the woman who thinks she can. Sooner or later, the little girl who wins is a little girl who thinks she can. Zarani, I see you. Sooner or later, the boy who wins is the boy who thinks he can. So remember, you poo-pooing away your gifts. When someone says, oh, girl, that was wonderful. That was amazing. Oh, sir, that was beautiful. Oh, that was nothing. It was some of my worst work. Not only are you telling them they have bad taste and holding back your stick, but you're also saying, my God is not that great. He didn't do great things to me. I'm not qualified. But how many know we serve a God who qualifies the unqualified? So you own it. You say, thank you and thank God. Thank you because I needed that affirmation, and thank God because He gave me this gift. And stop explaining it away. Hold that stick tight, and you write down what God has put into your life and put into your body and put into your eyes and your mouth and your lungs that blesses other people, because it does. Your presence here alone, I thank you all for listening to me. I'm affirmed by you all being here with me and sharing just your energy right now. You write down and you own what God has done and will do through you, and give Him all the glory. And I promise you, you will not regret it. Amen? Thank you.
I'm going to give that story conference so you get a chance to talk.